Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, the commodities market, stocks as well, all the things that are going on, obviously, with the Iran war. And loaded up for discussion today, we have the continued escalation in the US-Israel war on Iran. As yesterday, we're going to try our best to cover that, acknowledging that none of us are geopolitical experts, none of us are experts in any of these adjacent topics, and there is a ton of information out there. It is not the easiest job to verify what is actually true, what is rumored to be true. So we'll try our best to navigate that sensitive topic as well as we can. The other thing I also want to get into, apart from the market impact, is to have a bit of an AI update on what is going on this week. On the one hand, we have DeepSeek V4 being rumored to launch this week. Some leaks on what we can expect from that model, but also notably yesterday, Alibaba did release the small models in the Qwen family. These are models that some of them you can run on your PCs, on your Mac Minis, MacBooks, whatever. Some of them are even so lightweight that you can run them on your phone. So definitely interesting how these local models are getting more and more accessible and more powerful even. And that also will allow us to later on segue into our dial-in, into our interview for today with Alex from Nansen, where we definitely going to spend a good part of that interview also chatting on Nansen's AI integration. They do have a CLI tool, a command language interface tool that you can use to hook up your AI agents, your OpenClaw bots, whatever they are, with agentic capabilities to read the blockchain, which is pretty cool. So I do want to dive into that as well. Before we get into it, I do have Rahim with me in the co-host seat. Final reminder that nothing that we say here is financial advice. This market is, especially in days like these, extremely risky, extremely volatile. We certainly do not know anything for sure, so please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Rahim, welcome to the show. How are you doing on this Tuesday?
Good afternoon, everybody. It is a very interesting time as someone who's like born and raised in Dubai for like so long. It's obviously like the two words I use to describe the situation is perhaps like unfamiliar and surreal in some capacity. However, it's like just like very interesting to observe certain things about like how communicative a lot of like the social media channels have been from the government side. So they have like certain like, so Dubai media office is like one of our like most authenticated sources, so they keep like reporting on like what's happening in the region. What's interesting to see, I think, like in some ways, is I feel like I made like a tweet about this, like Dubai's population is divided into two very distinct groups of people, which is like, you have a group of people who've been here for a very long time. They were there during COVID, they were there during all like the political unrest in like Iraq and all of these other regions in the last like 20, 30 years. And then you have like an entirely like new crowd who's here like in the last 2, 3 years, who've obviously like haven't experienced like government like showing up or like doing things for them. And I think like the way people are responding is like vastly different. So I live near downtown and like the main part of like the city, and I'm not kidding you, like the cafes and restaurants are like way more packed than usual because a lot of people were just like working from home, so they were like, let's just go out and about. However, there are certain parts that are obviously like a lot of people are worried. They're like taking shelter in like basements, they're stocking on like supplies. So it's definitely like a very interesting time. The one thing I want to like really talk about, which I think was such a powerful thing to do, and I feel like a lot of the Western media did like not report it. Yesterday night at 9 p.m., you had the UAE president and the Crown Prince of Dubai walk around Dubai Mall at 9 p.m., just like waving around and just like walking amongst people. To me, I thought that was like such a powerful way of like showcasing that, like, if I, as like the president and as like the Crown Prince of Dubai, are here with you in the trenches with the public in a public setting, like you have to know that, like, we are taking all the necessary precaution. We got it. It's saying so much without like saying a word, and I thought that was like very, very powerful. Like, I don't know, like for me as someone who grew up here, I thought that was like such a beautiful way to show that, like, instead of doing just like a very corporate, like, news output, or you write like a news article, they were like, let's go out, let's just like show people rather than say. And I thought that was like very, very powerful.
Yeah, I did see the videos on X, and it wasn't him alone. It was the full delegation of 30-ish, 40-ish people. I would have guessed from the videos walking around, and I didn't think that this, as you said, was reported strongly in our media. But you also made another interesting point that I want to dive a bit deeper into. You said you had this post out as someone who has lived his entire life in the UAE, has grown up there. You've also experienced how COVID worked, how all of the other things in the past have worked out, and how the government reacted to these situations. Maybe can you retell some more of these past bits, maybe the COVID situation specifically? Then we're gonna go into the quick price overview. I'm going to give a quick update on what we know from verified sources on what's going on, and I definitely do want to get back, like, to obviously how you are seeing and experiencing the situation being on the ground locally.
Yeah, for sure. Like during COVID, we were one of the first countries to like start going under lockdown. And of course, you had a lot of like Western media being like, oh, there's clearly not the right information is not being communicated by the Dubai government. Why would they lock down the country first? And why would they do it like the soonest? And of course, like it was like a novel time for all of us also, right? That we also were like, what the hell is happening? What should we do? And I think like in just like a matter of like a week or so, it became like so clear about like how well thought out the entire plan was. To give you an example, I so distinctly remember where like the news articles were showing that like a lot of the medical staff, NHS, and like, a lot of like staff in hospitals around the world did not have access to like PPE and like masks and stuff. Whereas we were being delivered once a week by the government at our door. They're like, you don't need to go out. You don't need to like put the delivery guys like at risk. We will make sure that we drop that. And I think like those small things. One of the personal stories I have is back then I used to work as like a filmmaker and photographer. So when
Hmm.
everyone else was like working from home, even when the lockdown got over, so from like around like Feb-ish all the way to like August, I had like zero work coming in. I had a lot of clients for Expo 2020 that was happening. I had a lot of fashion clients, and all of those got canceled. So I was like freaking out because I was like, I had like zero income. And the government reached out to everyone in the Dubai Media Council. So all of us have like licenses from the Dubai Media Council. They asked us like how much money did we miss out on, what contracts got canceled, how much did we make last year. And I'm not kidding you, Ledge, a lot of like the information that I conveyed were like WhatsApp screenshots or like random emails that were like not even professional. So I did not have a lot of like hope that I would get something out of it. But lo and behold, in like 2 weeks, I got the same amount of money I made the year before in 6 months sent to my bank account and stuff. So I feel like the thing that people don't realize, and this is what I'm just like really speak to the people from Dubai, understand the nuance, is that unlike the rest of the world, like we are actually like we have a strong faith in our government. And I don't think a lot of countries or like a lot of people around the world feel the same. So I feel like a lot of people reflect that ideology on us, which is fair. And I think everyone's right to feel that. But I think it's very important to ask us, like, understand the nuance of why we feel like a certain way. Like I've been here like all my life. My dad used to live in Iraq and like Kuwait back in like the 80s and late 70s. So yeah, we've been around here. Like my family's around, been here for long. Like like ask these people, understand the nuance, and like don't listen to like Western media.
Awesome update. Look, I do want to get further into this conversation, but as we said, let's get some of the main updates of the way. First, starting as usual with the price action. Crypto is doing surprisingly well. BTC is up 2% of the day, went even higher than that. Is currently trading at 67.5K. ETH is up 1.5%, very close to 2K. Did go over 2K yesterday as well. The rest of the market is also on the crypto side rather green. Sol is up 1%, trading at $85. Hype is dominating on the day. Hype is up 5%, almost at $32. Looking really quickly on the meme side of things. Again, I also don't think that this is the most important thing to cover today, but we'll have a quick scroll through to see what's going on. Memes are red. We have Doge ship down 1 to 2%. Pippin is down 8%. It's a bit mixed with Pudgy then being up 2%, Floki up half, almost flat on the day. Dog with Hat is up 4%, Fartcoin is up 4%. So we have some of the bigger memes being in the red, but as we scroll down and get to the smaller market cap ones, some of them are in the 2 to 4 or 5-ish% region in the green. And getting into the main headlines, as I said, we don't have a snapshot, we don't have a roundup for today. We will, however, focus more on giving one more update on what we know from the situation in Iran. So what has happened is that Israel is currently attacking Tehran and Beirut simultaneously. The war has entered its fourth day. The Hezbollah also got involved. They had launched multiple strikes on Israel as well. We've also seen that the U.S. embassy in Riyadh was hit by a drone strike, was being evacuated. The U.S. did tell the citizens to leave the Middle East. Also, in some parts and places that they don't have the means to evacuate them directly. President Donald Trump, has been very, very active on his socials as well, saying that the U.S. Stockpile of weapons has never been higher, and also added that the quantities of higher grade weapons were not where we want to be. So that situation has been obviously causing a tremendous amount of volatility on the markets. I want to give a quick roundup of what is going on there as well. The most surprising thing maybe is, to me at least, that gold, which has run up to 5.4K yesterday, did crash all the way back to 5.1K. Now it bounced back up to 5.2K. Technically is still down 2% on the day, but also shows a lot of volatility, more volatility than crypto is showing at the moment, with BTC actually moving up quite steadily. Silver, however, has been impacted more. Silver is down 7% on the day. Now, on the stock side of things, the market started in the red yesterday, but somehow impressively managed to turn around, with the S&P 500 being almost flat, up 4 base points, so 0.04%. The Nasdaq Composite, however, was up 0.4%, as there have been some rotations into big tech. There's been a couple analysis coming out yesterday that Nvidia is still the top pick if you want to participate in an AI bet in your portfolio. So that also has helped Nvidia to be up 3% on the day. However, if we look at today's outlook for the stock market on the pre-market side of things, we can see that the Dow Jones is down, the futures side, that is 1.5%. S&P as well, and Nasdaq futures are down 2%. So definitely massive volatility to be expected for the day as well. Moving away from the stock side of things and moving to the oil price, unsurprisingly, oil price is increasing further, is above $76 for crude oil. That is to do with the fears of the market that Iran is in the position to keep the Strait of Hormuz actually closed, where a lot of the oil is flowing through. And as a result of that, it is also affecting the European stock markets. The Stocks Europe 600 is down almost 2% today. That is due to Europe's higher sensitivity to energy supply disruptions. The Germany's DAX 40, which is very heavy on manufacturing, energy intense industries, is down more than 2% now. Started down 2% in the morning, but it has dipped down further as well. So European stocks and also Asian markets have been suffering from that. There's a multitude of European countries who are now trying to see where they are securing their flows of natural gas from. We did speak about this yesterday, that the Qatari had to shut down their liquefied natural gas production after a hit as well, which did lead to the European natural gas prices. There's different prices for different markets in that case, to go up 30% yesterday. And you now have countries like Germany, like Austria, trying to assure their population that they will have gas, they will have oil to import and to use, and that there is no supply shortage. Ironically, that in the case of Austria leads to Austria now relying more on Russia again, which makes the whole situation even more complicated, because you still have the EU and Europe sanctioning Russia as a result of the war in Ukraine. So that is becoming another ingredient in this very, very strong recipe to create this volatility in the markets. And last but not least, on the market side of things, we reported on that yesterday. The DXY, the US dollar index, was up almost 1% yesterday. It's up another 60 base points today, trading at 99. That is measuring the strength of the US dollar against a basket of six other currencies. Went even higher on the day, has corrected down a bit, but definitely showing a strength as it is up 1.5% over the last 5 days, 3% over the last month, which again, for a rather slow moving index like the DXY, is an impressive amount. I'm going to pause here, Rahim, and go to you for your market thoughts to kind of see how you're making sense of what is happening here.
Yeah, like you mentioned, there's clearly like a massive level of volatility that's happening in the market. Like I think there was this pump that the crude oil had, and then it dipped again, and then you were seeing gold. Obviously, like the moment the war started, you had gold absolutely like spike on like HyperLiquid. It was trading at like, I remember, like around $5,400. It hence has dipped. So I think it's like very interesting how markets are reacting like so strangely in like some way. Of course, let's take like one step at a time. So crypto has been like obviously like the biggest shocker personally for me, because there were times we were having such positive news from the institution side, from governments, and like you would see like red days on like crypto. And we've talked about how like crypto acts as like a high leverage like tech stock rather than necessarily as like digital gold. So you obviously saw gold pump on like the night before, but then we've seen like massive dips. And it's just like interesting to me because I'm just like contextualizing all of this. And personally, I think a lot more information will come into light today, because so Dubai has opened up a lot of their airspace today. A lot of like flights from like Emirates and Etihad are departing. So I'm like, there's clearly a lot more information that needs to be communicated, that will be communicated to the public, that they wouldn't have done this otherwise if there's not some form of like news happening in the background. You look at the numbers, obviously crude oil is definitely going up, so there's clearly a lot of distress around the Strait of Hormuz. But if you look at gold, you look at crypto, clearly there is some sort of like de-escalation, at least like the chart. So however, the news don't say that. So I think I'm very interested to see how by today evening, how by tomorrow morning, all of this like contextualizes together. But definitely like some insane price action, especially on like the crypto side. Like the moment it happened, I was like, yeah, crypto's gonna hit like 55, 50K. Like, every time there's been war, we've taken like massive dips. We've never had like recoveries in the last year, whether it was the Venezuela incident, whether it was like other discourse, that we saw such a V-shaped recovery to a good extent until like the matters cleared off. So it's definitely a very interesting time to see how capital is moving in the market.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point, because this is also what has caught me by surprise, that BTC is that strong and is now actually behaving more how I would have expected Bitcoin to behave. As you said, if we zoom here out a bit, um, over the last 5 days, the low point that we hit was at 63K. We did go all the way up to 70K. There was one massive candle that took us from 65K yesterday to 70K. And now we are trading around 67.5. And this is the thing that I having a hard time making sense of. I also looked at the Bitcoin supply on exchanges, which now is at an all-time low, I think, since 2018, if I'm not mistaken on that. And we have also seen yesterday on Monday, which was a trading day for the Bitcoin ETFs, massive inflows to the tune of 460 mil. So this strength in Bitcoin is impressive. I cannot fully make sense of it. Is it a coincidence that we maybe have reached a local low and all of that bearishness and the fear has worn out a bit, and now we are actually seeing that BTC is behaving how it also did behave after the COVID flash crash? For those who remember it, it was the fastest asset to recover. And we did go at some point last year, I don't remember even which month that was, through a paper by, was either Goldman or JP Morgan, reporting on, no, it wasn't JP Morgan, it was a Goldman analysis reporting on how BTC and other assets are behaving after conflict, and that BTC is the first to dump and also the first to recover. But that's something that we haven't necessarily seen for the last year. So it does feel like, at least for now, BTC is going back to what I would ascribe as its like quote unquote normal usual behavior. What do you think about that, Rahim? Why is BTC reacting so strongly? Obviously there's multiple factors, but what is going on? What's the story here in your mind?
I don't know if it's like my PTSD with like crypto. I just feel like it's so quick. I can't imagine like our narratives have shifted that all of a sudden, where like a massive catastrophic World War III looming in the air event has somehow given us like a local bottom so quick, so fast, when things were just like absolutely like brutal 2 weeks ago, when everyone was like, oh, Bitcoin's going to like 40K or like 50K. So I don't know. I just like feel like, to me, the one thing I'm like really interested to look at, so the Dubai Stock Exchange was shut down yesterday and today, but they open up like tomorrow. Very interested to see how like retailers acting over there, whether it's on the real estate side, whether it's on like other like localized companies. It's funny because I was like, do I want to like trade, do I want to like buy things? But I was just like, in some ways, this is one of those times where I'm not able to make like sense of it, and I'm like educating myself, I'm like looking around. But I was like, I'd rather buy something a bit higher from a place of like knowledge than like this like weird cloud that's like looming in the air, which just like does not like make sense at all. Like, so I don't know, like, to be honest, I don't have like a concrete answer, but definitely keeping an eye. I think today and tomorrow I'll be very interested to see what happens.
Yeah, you said a very important thing here, which we did not touch on, that the stock markets did shut down. You also mentioned, and I want to maybe move a bit away from the market side of things and more to your experience on the ground in the UAE. You also mentioned flights going out. I think this morning we did see 5 flights: Paris, London, Frankfurt, and 2 more destinations, which I just don't have right now top of my mind, going out. 5 A380s, obviously fully packed. What is the situation generally? So stock markets, you said, are supposed to open back up tomorrow. In terms of the flights, do you know if these were 5 individual flights, and yeah, the UAE or Dubai is slowly going back to scaling up their own carriers, Etihad and Emirates, to have more flights, or was this a one-off? Do you have any more information on that?
Yeah, I think like right now there isn't like much clear information. To me, I'm just like taking educated guesses over here, right? So like, please like don't take this as written
Sure.
in like stone. But to me, with like flights opening up, I think is rather interesting. So on Sunday night, they had announced that so the KHDA, which is our education department, had announced the shutdown of like schools and like remote learning to kick off. And they had announced that a lot of the public and private sector companies will like work from home. Today, I have a few friends who work at Emirates. They work at like Talabat, which is like our food delivery app. They were asked to like, resume work back on. So I'm just like, okay, like I'm very interested to see like seeing how Dubai has handled, how they've been like communicating. I'm pretty sure this is not just like them like taking like random decisions. So I think like I'm definitely keeping an eye out, but from like the way some of the things are getting back to like normal, things are looking like maybe we must be on the cusp of like things de-escalating in some way. Obviously, like a lot of the remarks that like Donald Trump has been making in regards to like the war and everything has definitely been very contradictory. So that's why it's kind of like very hard to contextualize that. But man, like it's one of those things that people have to like realize is, firstly, like this is not our war per se. Like, you know, we are obviously, we have like US bases and things like that, but it is like we are caught in like the crossfire. I've actually seen a couple of like tweets today. Chain Yoda, who's like very famously on crypto Twitter, he was talking about that he's actually flown in back to Dubai. So like a lot of people are like, you know what, like we want to actually just be on the ground with our people, with the family, and with friends. So there are flights coming in from outside as well. So I'm definitely keeping an eye. And I, like I said, so as of this show currently going on, the Abu Dhabi government is doing like a live stream of just like reporting information on what's happening. So I think I'll catch up on that right after the show and would recommend people to check that out. But definitely, like I think a lot of things are like evolving and changing. So I just wouldn't like, for me, I've always been like follow the capital, follow the money, follow the business. If businesses are opening, if like certain prices of like certain assets are changing, I think that's like a bigger source of information in some ways until things change drastically.
Yeah, that is a fair enough point. And apart from flights reopening, stock market's supposed to reopen tomorrow. You said schools were closed. How's the rest of the local infrastructure looking like? You obviously reported on the Dubai Mall being not only open but also has had its public visit of the Crown Prince. So how is the rest of the infrastructure looking like at the moment? Is everything going as per usual, or how are you experiencing that side of things?
It's actually going pretty interestingly, like way more normal than normal. And what do I mean by that is, like I mentioned, I live in the middle of the city, and like the day before, when everything was obviously on like on every headline, I decided to take a walk on my street and just be like, you know, I just want to see what's happening on the street. Surprisingly, all the restaurants and cafes and all public places were actually way more busier than they usually are on like a weekday. And like I mentioned, I'm assuming a lot of people were just like working from home, so they will go out and about. But there's like, you go to like grocery stores, you go to like public places, like a lot of people are, they have like so much confidence. The fact that like this is, from like based on like data, this is the most amount of like missiles and drones that Iran has ever attacked any country with, and we've intercepted like almost like majority of them. So there is like a massive trust of like, you know, we are figuring out, we have like the resources. I think the communication from the government side has been like really really good. I think I like the fact that we are not waiting for like a press release, or like, you know, like the president coming live every day at like a certain time and waiting the entire day on like, you know, what the hell is going on, whether we should take certain actions, we should move to like different cities. But I love the fact that they've been like live reporting a lot of stuff. So there's like a lot of trust. Obviously, keeping an eye, suggest everyone to be like cautious and everything. But definitely, like, you know, just like keep an eye on the news.
Yeah, very interesting point. And this trust level seems to be extremely high, as you said, with people flying back in, but also with people like who was it, Pavel Durov, founder of Telegram, posting that he feels safer being in Dubai than in most of the European capitals at the moment. So I found it very interesting how you describe these two camps of people who have been there for a longer time, people who moved there probably very recently and obviously not used that, which is more than fair enough to all of these things, and a bit more worried about the situation on the ground. Look, we have like 10 more minutes or so before we're going to move into our interview, into our dial in with Alex from Nansen, who's going to join us on the show today. So, what I do want to do is ask you, Rahim, for any final closing thoughts on the Iran topic, the Iran situation. And then I do want to take it into our AI, DeepSeek, Qwen roundup before we get into the interview part.
Yeah, I think my closing thoughts would be just like make sure you're looking like the right sources of information. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know if you guys saw like that video that Grant Cardone was like sharing, which was like very obviously like AI. So just like there's like, don't forget, like 2 weeks ago we all were talking about how AI is getting crazy when it comes to content. For some reason everyone's forgotten that people have capabilities to doctor like a lot of like videos and footages. So keep an eye, look at like authentic media sources. Don't like panic unnecessarily, don't like take drastic decisions. I'm not even saying that if you're based here, but even when it comes to like trading, whether it's like crypto, equities, whatever, make sure you're getting access from like authentic information places before you make any like drastic decisions. But yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I even saw Nikita Beer posting that. they are, quote unquote, they're having to waste a massive amount of the GPU capacity to currently verify videos which are being posted, whether they're either AI generated or footage from PC games, which are basically making made look like it is footage from the Gulf states. So that is something to definitely keep in mind. But look, with that being said, let's tackle our last headline. Let's get a bit of a AI roundup going on, because I think there are some interesting things happening. On the one hand, I want to touch on the fact that DeepSeek V4 is rumored to launch this week. On the other hand, I also want to speak a bit more to Alibaba and the Qwen 3.5 model family, we almost have to call them. So let's start maybe with the Qwen family first. What has happened here is that Alibaba did release their new flagship model. They all have pretty, at first sight, complicated looking names, but they make sense. It's Qwen 3.5 397B, which just means there's 397 billion parameters in that model. That is the flagship model, and that is the one they want to see compete with Opus 4.5, not necessarily 4.6, GPT 5.2, and Gemini 3 Pro. So not with the latest versions, which would be 4.6, 5.3, and 3.1 for Gemini, but with the flagship models one iteration before. And the interesting thing about this model family is that it has been launched in a way where not all of these parameters are active. So this explains a bit the naming system. 397B again means there's 397 billion parameters, and A70B means 70 billion of those are active ones, which sounds complicated, but in practice means it's more lightweight to operate this model. It does not need as much memory to run it locally as if all of these parameters were active at the same time. And now the next thing that happened is that Alibaba released Medium family, which is basically you are able to run that on a MacBook with 64 gigs of RAM or more, or a Mac Mini or Mac Studio of the same capacity. And not only are you able to run it, you're able to actually run it at a reasonable speed. I tested it with my own Mac Studio setup, where I get more than 40 tokens per second, which feels very, very fast. And then yesterday we did see the release of the smallest model, the small family, with 942 billion and 0.8 billion active parameters. And the impressive thing here is that the 9 billion model, which is very easy to run on a Mac Mini or even on a lower powered Mac, is outperforming its basically higher weight class previous generation model, which was Qwen 3 30 billion on almost everything, on almost all of the benchmarks. So that is super, super impressive. And the other interesting thing is, and I've seen, it's one of the models I have not tried myself yet. It's the 0.8 billion one, so 800 million parameters, which is so lightweight that you can run it on your iPhone and chat with it fully locally. Obviously, it's not going to be able to do the same complex tasks of scaffolding an entire coding ecosystem or structure for an app or whatever you're building. But given its weight and given how easy it is to run on a phone, it is extremely, extremely impressive to see that, especially as these models get 260K of context, are multimodal, so they understand text, image, and even videos. That is the one thing I found interesting. The other thing is to do with the rumored launch of DeepSeek V4. We did expect that to come a bit earlier. Now we see rumors heating up that it might be this week, which, looking at some of the benchmarks, would make it very, very competitive, even with the likes of Opus 4.6 and GPT 5.3 codecs. We also take a look at the Poly market. It's currently a coin flip. If we're going to see it until mid-March, there's more certainty that we're going to see it until the end of this month. But I think it's important to keep in mind that this is a market that does not have a ton of volume in it. It has $500,000 of volume. But for me, more the takeaway more is that A, local models are getting way more lightweight and way more powerful, and B, with DeepSeek being actually supposedly competitive with Opus 4.6 on the coding side of things, and being a model that you will certainly be able to find in, as it's an open source model, in providers like Venice AI, etc. It shows how much more, especially this February and now leading into March, the Chinese models have gotten. And it kind of also backtracks to the conversation which we had yesterday on the fact that the whole Venice ecosystem with the DM token, with the VVV token, has exploded. As basically one DM token gives you $1 of compute. And now with these local models not only being more powerful but more efficient, you can get quite a far way with them. And I even had the thought that if I'm now in the position to buy a completely new Mac Studio versus just getting, for example, DM tokens going and using that for inference via Venice, that I find the latter option more attractive. Rahim, going to you. Rahim, going to you. Are these new models something you've been looking at? Do you find the idea of running models locally, potentially even your phone, interesting, or is that not an area you have explored so much yet?
I think, to be honest, like us having barrier to entry for tech when it comes to AI infrastructure is actually super bullish on like a multitude of parameters, right? I remember OpenAI put out this like statistic the other day that they have about 900 million users. That's quite a high percentage of like part of the world. That's what, like 10-15% of the world's population, right? But I do think what like the ChatGPT model has been doing, or like some of these infrastructures have been doing, is they're creating this disparity between people who are using AI, who can afford AI, compared to people who can't. And I don't think people realize the amount of like high volume users that exist in lower socioeconomic countries like India, like Vietnam, like Philippines, that like India has had like an insane adoption of like smartphone mobiles in like the last like 10-15 years, where there are like a lot of like really cheaper localized phones that are like really powerful, and it made like every person, every Tom, Dick and Harry become accustomed to the digitization of like the internet and like culture. So I think this is like very fascinating to see from that point of view, because I also see, and I'm actually curious to do some like research on it. I would like to assume, you have like a lot of Chinese like mobile companies. You have like Xiaomi and like a couple of other ones out there. I'm curious to see if there are any phone companies that are maybe like IPO'd, are focusing on kind of combining the infrastructure with like these DeepSeek models, to see if we are going to have like phones that are completely focused on AI infrastructure. Right now, it's like, oh, you can run this, like your phone is for like calling, for photographs. I think our biggest mode for the like last 10 years has been filmmaking and video and photography and content. Now our mode is going to be coding and AI usage. And I want to see more and more phones that might be building inside that side of things. I think that would be super interesting to see. I'm also very curious to see the price action between Nvidia and this like poly market, because if you guys remember, in 2025 of January, that's when DeepSeek had come out for the first time, and like it had tanked Nvidia. Like the entire market was like tanking. So I'm curious to see of how like the markets react, because Nvidia is clearly like at 2% based on like the earlier market report. So I'm curious to see of how like the rise of like DeepSeek and a lot of these like cheaper entry models does for like Nvidia, because the last time that happened, that was not good for the stock market.
Yeah, that is a very, very good point. And also on the mobile phone side of things, what I found interesting, and I was looking at last week, was Samsung's announcement for their new flagship phones coming out later in March, and they are now bundling together three AI agents, or three agentic systems, probably the more precise way to word it. On the one hand, you will still have Bixby. Bixby is Samsung's version of Siri, and Bixby's task is to control your phone. So I don't know, you can talk to Bixby to have your screen dimmed or whatever it is. Then they obviously have the integration with Gemini, and that will be a deeper integration, where the example that they showcased is you have a group chat going on, and People are talking. What an American example they could have come up with. People are talking what pizza to order, and Gemini is reading what's going on. Is basically proposing what to order and where to order on DoorDash, putting together a little basket of pizzas. And then the third thing that they have is Perplexity, which I found surprising and both impressive for the success that it means for Perplexity, given how many hundreds of millions of Samsung devices there are out there in the world. That Perplexity is to be integrated for all things searching the internet. So to me, one of the cool things to see is that Samsung is not focusing on like one single agent, one single element, saying like this needs to solve everything. Like how we have this debate on X, like is Claude's Opus 4.6 or Codex 5.3, which is the best agent, but they're like picking different systems, different LLMs for different lanes. And also the fact that you mentioned with obviously the more low cost phones who don't have the capacity of having 12, 16, 16 gigs of RAM, that they also will be able to run models which are super, super lightweight on older phones. And if they run within a very specific set of instructions, they can be super useful in automating your phone and having an actually useful AI assistant going on there.
Yeah, spot on, super spot on. I'm very yeah. I need to look more into like this perplexity side of things, but I think it's super interesting that they are outsourcing a lot of these agents, because I think that just like makes everything a lot more open source and a lot more interesting for me. I think if you think about, and I remember us talking about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, that one of Apple's biggest win was that when they pivoted to this model of having an app store, of rather than just like focusing on internal apps, is you bring third-party apps, and that's kind of blew up like their company on the iPhone side of things. So I think it's kind of cool that they're focusing on these other agents as well.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing that I'm waiting for, to see how Apple is going to tackle that and what they will focus on integration wise. They obviously have they have to deal with OpenAI, and the way it is done right now, the integration is not the most straightforward. Like typically from Apple, you're experienced to have this experience of everything is working out of the box. And with the Siri intelligence integration, like you have to go deep in the menus to even log in to ChatGPT and connect your account back if you want to use OpenAI's power to have it connected to your Siri. And even that is then not a seamless and smooth process, because the thing is Siri tries to answer as like your first layer respondent. And in case that is not working, or you want more information, then ChatGPT gets prompted. And I think the default is to ask for your permission, if that is even allowed to do so. It's a pretty clunky experience right now. And as they have been postponing the more intelligence here a couple of times, and I think now it's stated to come out later in with the fall releases, with the new iPhone 18 generation coming out, I'm very, very curious to see how that will look like, because I do expect that the entire agentic landscape is going to evolve and change massively by then. Just looking at the speed at which OpenClaw is currently being developed, you did see another OpenClaw update coming out today. The last one yesterday, I think it took off two days on the weekend, but the week before I also had like 4 days of consecutive updates. So this speed will be extreme, and I really hope for Apple that they will then ship whatever their own version of their intelligent assistant is, and not because of how the rest of the market is evolving, having to postpone once more. Because as you said, they did play it very smart by being super early to have their own silicon, to build out their own hardware with the M CPUs. But I do think that they are under a good amount of pressure to catch up on the assistant and agentic side as well.
Yeah, super well said. This was like I remember I've read Steve Jobs' biography, and it was his ethos of being like, "Oh, we need to have other people building on our infrastructure." So I hope they go back to that, and I completely agree with that.
Awesome. Look, with that also being said, we are almost ready to transition into our dial-in with Alex from Nansen. Super excited to get his perspectives on that side of things as well. Rahim, thank you so much for hosting the show with me today. And I am excited to have this conversation with Alex because, well, I've been using OpenClaw for a good while, way before it was called OpenClaw even, and I was very excited to see the CLI, the command language interface by Nansen, being released to my OpenClaw, so that my army of bots gets eyes on the blockchain. And for that reason, I am super delighted to welcome to the show today Alex, co-founder and CEO of Nansen, the blockchain analytics platform that has labeled over 500 million wallet addresses, raised 88 million from A16Z XL, GIC, Tiger Global, at a $750 million valuation. But Alex is not here to talk about dashboards. He is here because Nansen has massively evolved in showing you what smart money is doing, letting you trade like smart money all through conversational AI agents. They build an MCP integration that I just mentioned that gives your agents eyes on chain. And Alex believes that by 2030, nobody will trade crypto through dashboards anymore, which would be a lovely world to look forward to. With that being said, Alex, great to have you with us on the show today. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
It's great to be on the show. I'm happy to hear you're also an OpenClaw enthusiast. So I've been deep down that rabbit hole for the last weeks, I guess months almost now. So yeah, excited to be here.
Yeah, love it. I've even had the pleasure, because I am in Vienna, to go to the first ClawCon that Peter has hosted before the OpenAI deal was publicly announced, and he did leave Austria again to go back to the West Coast. But look, the first intro question for you is, you did say trading in 2030, that's only 3 years away, will look very different. Paint that picture for us. What do you think is trading going to look like in 3 years from now?
Yeah, I think probably the best analogy to make here is what's happened with coding. If you look at programming, engineering, it's been radically changed over the last few years. It started, of course, with vibe coding, where you were kind of a human in the loop working with an agent to code, and ultimately you were still looking at code mostly, and in fact many people still do. But it's moved on to become coding agents, right? And I think the same thing is going to happen with trading. Firstly, I think people are going to start vibe trading. This is already happening a little bit. We have an agent in our product. If you go to app.nansen.ai, or if you download our mobile app, which is called Nansen AI, you can talk to an agent, and the agent has eyes on chain. So you can see what's happening in real time. You can ask the questions, and you can even place trades through the chat UI. And so I think that's kind of the first step. But ultimately, over time, I do believe that increasingly we're going to have trading agents that we work through, and possibly the kind of canonical form of trading agents is going to be some kind of vault that maybe other people could deposit money into. So it'd be cool if you could create a vault, and if that vault performs really well, I could deposit money into it, almost like a bit of an agentic hedge fund. So I think trading is going to change dramatically in the next few years, and it's probably going to go really quickly. But there are a lot of people who are used to trading and investing in a certain way. And so it'll be interesting to see how those people might change their behaviors, or if it's going to be other people who actually come in and trade and invest instead.
Walk us a bit more through that part on what is currently possible. If I am on app.nansen.ai, I chat, I sign up, I chat there, I form some sort of thesis with the data that you guys are providing, and then how does the trade execution actually work in the background if I were to trade directly via Nansen?
Yeah, so maybe just to give a bit of background on the product. So a lot of people use Nansen for analytics, right? They would go in and they would look at a specific dashboard on what the smart money is doing. They might look at token god mode, which is our most popular feature. But the feedback we've been getting over the years is always that it's a little bit overwhelming for newcomers. You don't know exactly where you should go. If you have a question, you don't know exactly how to answer it. And so we've kind of leapfrogged that whole user experience problem by just giving you an agent where you can ask it literally whatever you want about on-chain. And so you could go in and you could say, hey, what is smart money buying right now, or in the last 20 minutes, or whatever time scale you want. And it'll go on to our database and basically figure this out for you. So it'll be a blend of a conversational interface, like a text, like a chatbot interface, but it can also create certain visual artifacts for you as well. And then once you feel ready to pull the trigger, maybe you've found some meme coin, or you've found any type of token that you're interested in and you want to buy, you can literally just say, okay, cool, put $100 into that. And then what it does on the back end, kind of magically, is that it does meta aggregation. So it looks at multiple different DEX aggregators, and it comes back with the best price that it found across those. And it allows you to basically one-click execute the trade on chain. So the way I would think about our product is that it is agentic, it's on chain, and it's fully integrated into one product. You might be kind of familiar with the pretty clunky user experience that crypto often offers, where you have to jump between like 3 or 4 different products. You have to use one to find what you want to buy. You have to use another product to actually go and place or to get the quote and to place the trade. And you have to use a third product to sign through a wallet, for example. And so we've kind of combined all of that into one integrated user experience. And what we're trying to do is kind of create almost like an Apple grade UX, but fully on-chain settlement, which is pretty cool. So that's basically the gist of it.
Gotcha. And there is also a way to use that mobile. So you see the future of trading also then happening on your phone, where I just chat to my agent and then trades are being executed.
So we could actually, maybe you could try here. I'm not sure what it looks like if you haven't signed up. You might have to sign up to do it. But if you would sort of type in, anything, what is smart money buying, or, who is buying Trump token, or who is selling syrup USDC, which I can see there on the screen, you would basically get, the agent would just go to work, right? It would just go ahead and do the work for you. So you can do that on mobile, or you could do it on web. And here we see a nice little animation, and it kind of explains you can deposit in there to trade if you want to trade. You can use one of the pre-created prompts too. And so if you just click one of those, like what sectors are dominating smart money tokens right now, it goes out and actually does the research for you. So it's a little bit like having kind of an institutional grade research team at your fingertips. And instead of you having to spend a lot of time looking at these different data sources, you can just go out and kind of let the agent do that work. So if I'm not sure it's going to work now without funds in the wallet. Maybe you could try. If you put, let's say you just put like buy $10 worth of Sol in the chat, literally just like type it in. It might say that you need to top up, but I guess we'll find out. It's good UX testing here.
Let's buy Hype instead. I don't want to buy Sol.
Oh, okay, you want to buy Hype. Okay, it might say that I can have you buy $10. First, you need to enable trading mode. Okay, cool. So you can click the little trading button down there it's by the chat UI. There's a little trade icon, and then you have to agree to the terms and conditions, which I'm sure you'll read very carefully.
So
and then exactly,
and that's the last. Then I'm ready to have my agent trade for me.
Correct. And at the moment, it basically supports trading on Solana and on Base. And I noticed that you wanted to trade Hype, and so we might have perps coming soon. But and if we do, it'll be HyperLiquid. Of course, we're one of the top validators for HyperLiquid, so we're very supportive of that project. But at the moment, you can trade on Solana and Base, spot only.
Gotcha. And you mentioned the term before, the vibe trading term, which I like a lot. And similar to vibe coding, there is the trust ladder, which you also have been talking about, right? It's your experience of getting into a self-driving car for the first time. I was just in Abu Dhabi a couple of weeks ago, and in a self-driving robot taxi, which was insanely cool. And it was like quite easy to trust that. thingy. But I also was quite easy to trust, giving my OpenClaw about full access to my Mac Studio, which is my background. Be like, we don't need a sandbox. Do whatever you want. But obviously, if you look at the adoption curve, that is not the standard for everyone. So if you talk about vibe trading, you don't look at charts anymore. You can look at charts, but basically everything comes out of trading by talking to your agent. Where are we right now? And do you think it is harder to build trust when it comes to trading? As obviously there's real money involved, but on the other side, I would argue that if you're vibe coding, the stakes are also pretty high, because if you give I don't know, Claude Code full access to you, say the only Mac that you have, and something goes wrong and you have RMR happening and your data gets deleted, that would be probably equally painful, if not even more painful than vibe trading with $100, whatever comfortable budget for people to experiment with and lose is. So where are we on the trust scale with vibe trading, and do you think it's a harder one to climb than the vibe coding one?
Yeah, it's a great question. So just a bit of background on what I call the trust ladder. It basically is a ladder on 2 dimensions. One is user trust, and the other is on actually building out the technology so that it's trustworthy. And so you start with the human very much in the loop and calling the shots, and this kind of Copilot user experience, which we kind of have on the screen right now. But then increasingly, you'll want to delegate more to the agents. Maybe you'll allow the agents to surface smart trades, right? It might say, hey, this is an interesting trade, and shows it to you, and then you still are the one clicking the button to execute. But at some point, maybe you don't want to do that, and you want to just let it trade fully autonomously. And maybe you don't even know exactly which strategy you should give to it, so you just maybe set some guardrails, and then you kind of let it run. And like I said earlier, maybe at some point you don't even want to do that. You just want to deposit money into someone else's vault where they have done that work. So that to me is the trust ladder. It doesn't really make sense to go straight to the end for 2 reasons. The first one is that I don't think users are ready for it. I don't think they will trust, and they probably should not trust products that are going straight to that, because it's a very hard problem to solve. Right. And so similarly, the way Tesla kind of has allowed you to almost like ease into, full self-driving, where you start in the driver's seat, you might, have your hands near the wheel, right? And you can intervene at any time. Eventually you're sitting in the back seat like you did you said in UAE, right? Or in Abu Dhabi, or and I had a similar experience in Shenzhen a couple of weeks ago where I had a self-driving car as well. And like, you'll probably agree with me that it does feel kind of strange, and you don't feel totally at ease, right? And so someone had to kind of climb the trust ladder before you. And so I think users have to climb up that trust ladder and get used to this type of technology. But also we as builders have to actually earn their trust by doing this step by step, right? And it's very easy for me to create a product right now where I can just basically have a claw bot on the back end and then take all your money and then say, hey, you can trade autonomously now. But it's probably not going to be very good. And I'm going to lose all of your trust if I do that. So what we're doing internally at Nansen is, first of all, we're building the best toolkit for agents. And I think you referred to it at the beginning, but this is basically a command line interface. And for those of you who are, an OpenClaw, or you are somewhat technical, you can basically just install it from npm. So npm install -g Nansen CLI. That's the CLI. And now, boom, your OpenClaw has eyes on chain once you install that. And
maybe
so having the
stepping back here and
good.
explain for those who are not as technical what a CLI does and what that
even
means to install that and working with it.
Yeah, so it's very funny because like CLI, a command line interface, is just a terminal tool. And so if you look at kind of old school, maybe science fiction movies, they would sort of type in the command line without graphical user interfaces. And of course, those of us who are somewhat technical also have been doing this quite a bit. But now it just happens to be the case that AI agents really like command line interfaces, because they're incredibly convenient for them, because they're all text, right? And so Andre Karpathy has talked about this quite a bit. One of the leading AI sort of thought leaders and AI researchers who was at Tesla and so on. And he's basically pointed out that most products don't have a command line interface, which becomes super inconvenient when you try to get your AI agent to use those products. So we, I think, recognized this relatively early, and we saw that, look, you have to be agent first in the way you build your product. You have to be available and easy to use for agents. And so we've really doubled down on our efforts to make the CLI incredibly useful. And actually, we have a big release tomorrow, and we're going to have another big release next week for the CLI. So it's a good time to just jump in and make sure you upgrade your CLI, which is very easy. You can ask your Claude to do it if you don't know how to do it. But basically, that's kind of what a CLI is. It's almost like an app for the agent, right? It's like you give it a tool, and it can use this tool, and it can read the docs for it, and it's just a very convenient way to allow your agent to use a product.
And it is a very efficient way as well. You are not having the same
That's
amount
right.
explode as if you were to pull in skills and MCPs and all the other things. And the things that then don't happen.
That's exactly right.
Is what happened to me when I set up my OpenClaw, and I wanted to be in a position to have my OpenClaw trade autonomously. And I gave my bot access to a HyperLiquid wallet, and I was like, hey, read the docs. There is $2,000 in it. Figure out how to set up your trading wallet, which on HyperLiquid happens via a nested sub wallet, which is basically not to be filled with money, and its only reason is there to execute trades on your main wallet on behalf of you. My agent did not read the docs properly, so he created another nested wallet, sent all the money there by itself, and did not save the private key. So that was gone, and private key was never
There you
saved.
go.
Money was lost, and that's exactly what you're mentioning with the trust ladder. Like, my agent failed to help me climb
Totally.
the ladder. But going back to the CLI, what for a typical user, what's the difference of using Nansen via the agent on app or on site, and what's the difference via integrating it with my OpenClaw, with my Cursor, Claude Code, Codex, wherever I want to have CLI running? Can I do more things? Can I do things in a different way? Like, what is a non-technical way to kind of conceptualize the difference of these two tooling kits?
Yeah, so I would describe it as, firstly, it can be way faster potentially to go through workflows because an agent can do a bunch of steps. So if you have like a trading style or a trading strategy, you can kind of explain that to the agent, and then you can tell the agent, maybe make a skill for that. And then next time you want to do that, the agent can just click through or like jump through all those steps. So firstly, it can be a lot faster because you don't have to click around in a UI. Secondly, it's way more configurable and customizable. So you can combine it with other tools, right? It's totally composable. You can come up with your own automations. I literally, an hour before jumping on this call, I set up like my 4th OpenClaw, and I basically had a kind of Nansen intern persona, which I want to be able to create content using the Nansen CLI. And it's pretty clunky to do that through our UI. You can do it, but it's very manual. Whereas if you just give it to an agent, the agent can actually create content really quickly and can discover interesting findings, and it can produce that for you. So it's actually really good for content creators. I think it's kind of an underrated use case. And so I would just say it's more flexible, it's faster. It basically means that you and I are going to use Nansen in extremely different ways because we have our different stack. So my product philosophy right now is that we have to cater to the pioneers and the early adopters like yourself. And we have to make sure that we are in your stack when you're trading on chain. And the bet is that if we can do that, then we're going to be in a great position to win the mass market when they're ready and they've climbed the trust ladder to trade agentically on chain.
Awesome. And maybe, as we only have a couple of minutes left in the show, doubling down on the winning part. End of December last year, you wrote this letter to Nansen users 2025, a fucking great product. And you said that the goal is to build this fucking great product to help you win. So how does winning look for Nansen in 2026? What are some of the metrics that you're focusing on most? Is it the adoption of the agentic side of things? How many people are actually running the trading stack using the CLI? Is it the on-chain? Is it the on-app, on-site usage of your LLM? Like, what are some of the North Star metrics you're looking on when it comes to having a successful 2026?
Yeah. I'm going to say something, and I'm going to be very clear on it. And I also don't want this to be interpreted in a way that I'm promising anything for regulatory reasons. But the North Star of our company is that our users outperform the market. We cannot guarantee that, to be crystal clear, because there are many things that go into people winning in markets, trading on chain. But that is the North Star of the company. And so if our users outperform the market, we are happy. And if they don't, we are not happy. That is basically kind of how I think about the whole company. And my background is in AI and machine learning. And I almost think of the whole company as like a neural network, where the output, what you're trying to do, the reinforcement learning almost, is to just make sure that our users are winning. And so the cool thing now is that we have built this integrated product. We used to be kind of an on-chain analytics product only, but now we have an embedded wallet, which is powered by Privy, and we have on-chain execution, powered by all these different aggregators under the hood. That means we have full observability on whether our users are winning or not, right? And so that means going forward, we're going to have incredible observability on whether the product is doing what we want it to do, which is to make sure that our users are growing their portfolio and outperforming the market. So that's this very basic North Star. Like, if our users win, we win. And when I think about what that means in terms of metrics and adoption on our side, what I think we will see is that we'll grow trading volume on Nansen very rapidly this year. I think we will see API API consumption going up tremendously. We're actually seeing like a vertical increase in API usage. A lot of it is actually through the command line interface that I mentioned earlier. And then we've also been able to grow very healthily a staking business. So we have $1.4 billion worth of assets staked across lots of different networks. HyperLiquid is one of them, Solana, Tron, and a bunch of other networks. And so from a business point of view, I want to see increasing trading volume. I want to see more usage of our API, and I want to see people stake with Nansen. But ultimately, what I care about is that our users actually grow their portfolios.
Gotcha. I love that. I love that vision. I have two more follow-up questions. Quick one. When you say outperforming the market, what's the benchmark that you're looking at?
I mean, the basic benchmark would be Bitcoin, right? That's kind of the most obvious one. You can look at a few different things, but I would say if you can beat Bitcoin, that's kind of the hurdle that we should think of. And then we might get more sophisticated later on. And maybe you even look at, the smart money index of the wallets that we're tracking and identifying as smart money. But I think a good place to start is to make sure you outperform Bitcoin.
Gotcha. And the second question is, as you said, you have a formal background in AI. You did your master's in 2010, so quite a while ago. And would you have expected that the world, in terms of AI usage and capability, looks like this in 2026, and that all the things that are possible today would have been possible, like looking back from 2010 and imagining how the world would look 15 years later? Or would you have thought that this is gonna take way longer, or even progress way faster?
Yeah, when I decided to study AI, most people thought it was a joke, that it was only science fiction and you couldn't study that at university. I always thought that it felt inevitable to me that we're going to have children of our minds one day. And so in some ways, it felt like an inevitability. But in other ways, it's been surprising how it has played out. And I think the thing with technology is that you have these kind of breakthrough moments, and we've had 2 big breakthrough moments since I graduated in AI. The first was deep learning, and the second one was transformers or GPTs, which has led to the modern AI era. So now I think we're feeling the singularity. Like that's kind of, it's crazy, but like I kind of knew the singularity would come one day. It feels kind of odd to be living through it because I do think that's literally what's happening. And there are a lot of surprising things that I hadn't expected with regards to, for example, how these products are being developed so rapidly. Like Claude is a great example, actually. I think Claude is accelerating the development very rapidly on how people use AI. So yeah, it's what a time to be alive. Like honestly, I think we're super fortunate to be able to live through this. So I'm excited to have a front row seat in this revolution.
Couldn't agree more with you. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we close the show for the day?
I would recommend people to go to Nansen.ai, check out the product. We have the web product. You can check out the mobile app, Nansen AI. And of course, you should download the CLI if you're a bit more technical and you like to dabble with AI agents. But yeah, stay tuned with everything we're doing. The shipping velocity is exploding, literally doubling our deployment rate, from 1 month to the next. So it's a super exciting moment to be a Nansen user, and I would encourage everyone to check out the product.
Love it. Thank you so much, Alex. It's been fantastic having you on the show today, and that also brings us to the end of the show today. Thank you to Rahim, who was co-hosting the main show with me earlier. As usual, we're gonna get the uploads out on Spotify, out on Apple Music. We're gonna get clips done and published as well. And we're also gonna be back, same place, same time tomorrow at 7 a.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, take care, have a great rest of your Tuesday, and see you tomorrow.